right, let's get started, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of Summer of Learning, BrowserStack Summer of Learning. I'm really excited to present to you today's two sessions. The last week's session that we had was a huge success. We had over 1,200 attendees, and we had some great sessions on Selenium, on Cypress, and also on Puppeteer. So today it's going to be all about the JavaScript testing framework. So we've got David Burns, who's going to be talking about Nightwatch, and we have Kevin Lamping, who's going to be talking about WebDriver.io. So the first session is going to be David Burns presenting Nightwatch, and then we're going to have soon after that Kevin Lamping covering WebDriver.io. Before we start, just wanted to sort of go through a few housekeeping items. So each session will run for 55 minutes with 5 minutes of a break in between. All of you will be muted so that speakers can present without interruptions. Please use the Q&A button on the Zoom interface to submit any questions. We'll try to cover as many of them as possible. We'll try to finish our session, each session, about 40 minutes to 45 minutes and keep it to that so that we have enough time, 10 to 15 minutes before we run out of time to address any questions that you might have. These webinars are also being recorded, and we will share them all. We will share them with all of you, and we'll also be publishing them on our YouTube channel. So please do check it out when you get a chance. All right, so let's get started. So I think before we get into the topic of Nightwatch, just wanted to spend 5 minutes to tell everyone a little bit about BrowserStack. So we've been around for almost 10 years now. We'll be hitting our 10th year soon in September. We launched, and within the first 6 months, we had our first 1,000 customers. Over the next few years, we built out the capability of cross-browser testing both on desktop and mobile devices. We launched real Android and real iOS devices in 2015. We launched app testing, native app testing in 2017. And soon after that, we launched App Automate, which is our automated app testing product. And in 2018, also, we raised our first round of funding from Excel of 50 million. We've been also expanding our data centers. So right now we are, I think, 15 data centers around the world. In 2020, last year, we acquired Percy, visual testing and review platform. We also launched SpeedLab, which is a free tool that allows you to test how your website performs on different browsers and devices. And most recently, last month, we raised our Series B of 200 million at a 4 billion valuation. We have been around for 10 years. We have 4 offices around the world, and we are probably close to 800 employees now. We are trusted by over 50,000 customers across verticals. Some of the biggest brands in each of these industries are our customers. We also support a wide range of open source projects, close to 2,000 open source projects who actually use BrowserStack to test their projects, right? And to make sure that their projects and their frameworks that they're developing are working correctly on different browsers and devices. We've got 4 million registered users who run 72 billion Selenium commands a year with us. We have customers in over 135 countries, and we have 15 globally distributed data centers through which we provide our desktop and mobile browsers. The world's largest cloud providers rely on BrowserStack. So we have brands like Amazon, Google, Oracle, and Microsoft, who are all customers of BrowserStack and use it to test their software. This is sort of a high-level overview of the products that we offer. So how we break it down is we have web testing products. So we start with Live, which is the first product we launched, which allows you to do interactive or manual cross-browser testing on browsers and desktop browsers and real mobile devices. We have Automate, which is our Selenium grid on the cloud, through which you can run hundreds or thousands of parallels across different browsers and devices. And then we have Percy, which allows you to do automated visual testing and review. And you can basically compare screenshots of how your website appears on different browsers and compare it to a baseline that you have, which is the way it's supposed to look. And it allows you to sort of find out what the differences are visually between what you've built and what it's what the sort of the baseline version is supposed to be. On the mobile application testing side, we have App Live, which allows you to do manual testing on real iOS and Android devices. We have App Automate, which allows you to run your automated mobile app tests on our platform of real devices. So you can use frameworks like Appium, Earl Grey, Espresso, and XUI test to write your tests and run it on the BrowserStack platform. And we also have a set of free tools, which include screenshots, responsive, and speedlab. So screenshots and responsive basically allow you to test both cross-browser compatibility and also how your responsive design is sort of rendering depending on the breakpoints you've set across different resolutions. And lastly, we have speedlab, which I talked about, which allows you to test your website's performance across different browsers and mobile devices. Before I move on, just want to make a quick announcement here. We are giving out what we call a BrowserStack pack for every attendee. So the team will be putting up a link on the chat window. So this will give you unlimited access to all of the products that I spoke about for a month. So please make sure that you do that. It just takes you a few minutes to claim your pack, and then you can give all of our products a whirl and understand how BrowserStack can help solve your problems. Awesome. All right. So with that, let's move to our first session, which is going to be about Nightwatch, the JavaScript framework you need, hosted by David Burns, who's the head of our open source office at BrowserStack. David is probably someone who needs no introduction. Now he's a core contributor to the Selenium project. He's the chairperson of the W3C browser testing and tools working group. And he likes solving hard problems. I think, working on different tools and frameworks. He's also written multiple books on Selenium. Yeah, he's going to talk today about Nightwatch and, how you can use Nightwatch for your testing. Over to you, David.
Thank you for that. This is the kind of the awkward point where I got to switch over to, no, that one. And let's start presenting. So hopefully you can still see my screen and everything is hunky-dory. So today, oh, there we are. There we are. So today I'm going to be talking about Nightwatch. And the main reason why I picked Nightwatch is that kind of when we were talking about Summer of Learning, we had every single framework out there. And sometimes like when you know all the main ones, sometimes the little known ones kind of have all the features you want. And sometimes they have even more features than some of the big names. And I really liked Nightwatch. So kind of I decided to pick this, and I'm going to walk you through setting up a project. If you kind of do front-end development, is not my forte, but kind of I know enough to kind of be able to show you how to go through it. So we're going to work our way through Nightwatch because it's just as opinionated as Puppeteer or Playwright or WebDriver IO. So this is the agenda. We've already done the introduction. I'll move on to a bit more about Nightwatch. And then we're going to set up a project and talk about like automation APIs and how that looks. We'll kind of run some tests in parallel, run some tests on BrowserStack, and then hopefully at the end, you can ask me as many questions as we can get through. I will try and make sure that we have enough time at the end to answer questions, but if not, we will try our best to make sure that they come out in some form of blog post. Brilliant. So what is Nightwatch? Everyone knows what Selenium is. It is kind of the de facto testing tool of the web. It's been around for well over a decade. It works with all the major browsers. It has kind of its own quirks, but kind of most people know how to use it, and it has brilliant support for multiple languages. One of the things that Selenium is not is a testing framework. Selenium has always been about automating the browser, showcasing the bits and pieces that it takes to automate a browser. And this is not a trivial task. This is why we've got to have standards now. It is supported by all the major browser vendors, so from Google to Microsoft to Apple to Mozilla. And there's even a bit of support for kind of as we head into the mobile spaces from browser vendors like Samsung Internet. And it's important that we kind of have this healthy ecosystem. But as I say, Selenium is not a testing framework. And this is where Nightwatch comes in. Nightwatch is a somewhat opinionated tool that allows you to write JavaScript tests. So it's only in JavaScript to test your applications. It's been around for quite some time, and it's easy to create your end-to-end tests using JavaScript or TypeScript, as well as kind of helping you out with some of your unit testing. So kind of if you need to spin up like component testing and things like that, it has all the small bits and pieces. And it was created by Andre Rousseau and his wife a good few years ago, and they've done a fantastic job with maintaining it. Oh, wrong way. So from here, we're going to see about setting up a project. And so today, I kind of wanted to do something that was somewhat different to what is normally done in these situations. For those who work on Angular, like have an Angular website, or you're working in an enterprise setting where Angular is there, you may or may not know that Protractor, the tool, the testing tool with Angular, is being deprecated and shut down by Google. They don't have the energy, the people to support it. And so kind of I thought I would help with showcasing how you could go about, if you're still using Angular, which is a good front-end framework, you can still go ahead and move to another testing framework. So with that, before I do that, for what we're going to do, we're going to use VS Code. I have Node.js 14, like 14 plus is good. Obviously npm to be able to install things, and we're going to install the Angular CLI. That's it for what we need right now. Everything else will kind of, as we go through it, we'll do it. It will kind of showcase it. Right, so I've written this up just mostly because if you've watched some of my other webinars and the marketing team like to berate me for it, is sometimes the demo gods just don't work for me. So this is why I kind of shortcutted this, but we'll make sure that you can do this. So the CLI is a really simple tool, really easy to download, and hopefully you can see it's in. Right. So once you've got the CLI, there is it creates a command line tool called ng for Angular. And we're going to create a new project, and I'm just going to call it Angular Nightwatch. And from there, we'll have a look at what this should show you. The CLI tool is very good at kind of just making sure if you need certain bits, it'll ask you. So like, do we need routing? No. How clever are we with our CSS? I'm not very clever, to be brutally honest. So I'm just going to go with plain old CSS. And then it goes and creates everything. Hopefully you will see on the right-hand side, it is running. It's created a directory. It's populated a directory with all the kind of the core bits and pieces. It's using TypeScript. So TypeScript, if you've not been around JavaScript too much, it's a variation on JavaScript created by Microsoft that allows you to have strongly typed inference of elements in your code. So kind of like if you're working, if something should always be a string, you can say, please always be a string. And if it's no longer a string, the TypeScript compiler, VS Code, and things like that will kind of throw a bunch of errors for you. And so it's important to, like from that side of it's very good at kind of pointing out simple mistakes. And I come from a lot of Python and JavaScript, and it's so easy to do small typos and then spend the next 3 hours trying to find one character that is wrong. I'm sure we've all been there, and I'm sure we will all be there at some point in the future. So now that we've got everything installed, as you can see, everything's been created, everything's successfully installed. I'm just gonna start from the side. Always make that mistake. We just go into the directory, and you will see that it has created a Git repository in that directory for you. So it's initialized Git. So anything we do from now on will be, we can always like revert. This is a kind of a good habit to get into, and it kind of saves a bit of face, especially because I'm going to repeat this over and over. I'm not very good with CSS. And so we've got that, and then ng serve, and I will fire that up. So one of the downsides to kind of TypeScript and a lot of other JavaScript things is that when you kind of run these like serve code or build code, it takes a little bit of time to cross compile and get everything running. It's not too long. You know, if you've worked in things like Rust or Java, sometimes it can be a little bit longer. And so, oops, I don't want to do my bookmarks. There we go. We have our first Angular project. And we can kind of use, like, it helps guide you through everything that you might need. So like if you want to use Angular material, you can click on that and then just copy the code, run it in a terminal, and it'll install that. We could say install PWA. And so if I just use another terminal, we go to Angular Nightwatch, we go paste it, because it's given us the nice command. Would I like to? Yes, please. Oh, not H. Why? So for those who don't know, PWA is a new technology that is being developed by the folks at Microsoft and Google and Mozilla to allow you to create web applications that are installable on mobile devices. It heavily uses things like service workers and other bits and pieces that are kind of hides in the background, so that like every time you navigate to it, it'll check if it needs to do any certain updates and download those, and then keep us a special cache. It's what app cache historically was always supposed to be, but didn't work out that way. So we've got all of this running. We've got, whoops, have I broken something? Tell you what, let's just cancel that. The funny thing is, I can tell you now the wonderful marketing people who helped me prepare everything will be laughing in the background, because the demo gods are always against me. So we'll let that run again. There we go. All good. And so the PWA would allow you to kind of install from here, and then it sets up a browser, like a mini browser, think Electron type thing for each other things. It's not like Electron, but I'm like, for simplicity sake, we'll do that. Brilliant. So we have a website. we have everything that we need, and we can kind of inspect elements. Like, so having worked at Mozilla, I still use Firefox as my default browser. And I can kind of use the dev tools, and I can look around. I can go into the debugger. I can have a look at kind of every little bits and piece that I might need. So it's very good that way. But the most important thing, once we've kind of, right, sorry, folks. Because I worked at Mozilla, I still use the nightly version, and things go horribly wrong sometimes. Right, so we need to see about setting up some tests. We can have a look at like the unit tests, which are important. I'm sure we all know what the testing pyramid should look like. So our UI tests should be the smallest amounts of tests, and our unit tests should be the largest amounts of tests by number. This way you can kind of get away with not running as many UI tests, but when you do run them, they give you kind of enough of a detail to tell you where something is right or wrong, and they give you that confidence. And so whenever we're developing software, it's all about giving ourselves confidence that we're not going to look like an idiot to our customers. So the next thing we need to do is set up some tests. So we'll have a look at the driver initialization. And so there's a kind of a step just before this that I forgot to write down, but it'll be fine. We'll have a look at page objects, and we'll have a look at assertions, because a test is somewhat useless if it doesn't have any form of assertion. How are you going to know that something is good or bad? And as a big believer in test-driven development, I want to make sure that my tests are asserting before I've made any changes, because I don't trust a test that's always green. There's probably something wrong with it, or me. And so I just want to make sure. Let's check that I'm not going. Oh, yeah. So we'll set up some tests. Oh, wait, I think I've just realized I've loaded the, oh, no, I have loaded the right one. So we'll go back here. And so we'll just load this one. So this is our previous terminal. This is kind of making sure the website is serving. And we'll do everything else, hopefully, from here now. So the CLI tool, and see if this will work, gives you quite a few little tips and tricks about how you would want to do certain things. So kind of you can run some tests. You can run the end-to-end tests. So this is kind of important for kind of from a Selenium and like points of view. You can create builds, and you can add certain things. So I'm just going to start with kind of the tests. And so kind of this is where like we're just using Karma. It's basic. It comes with the browser, or not with the browser, with Angular. I do apologize. With Angular. So it does all the compiling again. And this is where something like always goes wrong. Ah, there we are. So it's running some tests. So it should be able to create the app, render the title, and have the right title. Brilliant. And then we can go back here. This is already using Selenium to kind of make sure that the browser is in the right state. And then it loads Karma. But now we need to have a look at running our end-to-end tests. This is why we kind of why we use things like BrowserStack to make sure that our code is good. And so this is by design. When you've got your end-to-end test and you've not set anything up, Angular will tell you what to do. And so in this case, you could have picked Cypress if you were doing last week's talk, or if you're for the next talk after this, you could have a look at WebDriver.io. But since this is my talk and I'm talking about Nightwatch, I only care about adding this. So the schematics, yes, please. The schematics projects allow people to remove protractor, kind of do a, this is a very English phrase, but like a bit of jiggery pokery, move things about, and make sure that Nightwatch is set up for us. Would I like to remove protractor? Yes, please, because protractor is no longer going to be supported. What browser would I like to test on? Firefox, please. And so what we've got now is that our Angular application has been updated. Our package.json has been updated, and we can, if I load this up, we'll just make that smaller. Like we can see it's running Nightwatch and it's saying our environment is Firefox. And if you're using something like Visual Studio Code, you get little bits and pieces like that so that you can kind of run. And so we've got all of that. And if you look over here on the right-hand side, there's now a new directory called Nightwatch, just so you can see where your code is. There's some TypeScript config, so that when you run end-to-end, E to E, it knows to come look here. And then we have our source. And I'll just load this up. And so in this case, we're going to load up a browser at the end of the test. So this is the equivalent to Selenium's driver.quit. And this is like, if you've used Selenium, this will be kind of like Selenium's driver.get or driver.goto. And this is our test. So we can write in here. Nightwatch is very good in that it's it kind of has like a Mocha style test framework. So if you use Mocha, it's easy to use this. But if you want to use Mocha, you can, or if you want to use Jasmine, you can. At the end of the day, like Nightwatch is all about kind of making sure that you can use the code that you want in a way that you want, and you can kind of sit with its opinions. So we have that. And we have our Nightwatch config. So if I just make that smaller. So what this will, the config file just tells you where everything is. And so kind of it sets up where certain things want to run and how they want to run it. If you want to run things in parallel, you can run things in parallel. Sorry, I'm going slowly. So yeah. And you can create like your page objects path. And so this would be a simple case of just creating a directory and putting it there. And so the first thing we need to do is we're going to update this. I know the folks at Nightwatch have said that they will update this in the future. So that was the URL that we used earlier. It's already installed Firefox driver for us. And then I'm just double checking. Okay, I think let's give it a go. I think I've done everything I wanted. And so our test is going to fail, but that's by design. And so here I hopefully will have it show on the right window. Oh no, obviously. Oops. Small mistake. I haven't set up a certificate. So in this case, it failed. It couldn't find the elements, and it couldn't find the elements because we couldn't load the page because I forgot to remove the S from HTTPS. So let's try that again, and hopefully this time we'll see it load and then fail for a different reason. Oh no, there we are. Hopefully you saw that quick flash. It's the problem with multiple screens, and I need the 2 screens at the moment. So brilliant. We've got this failure, and why can't I click on? There we are. So we have a failure. No such element. This is exactly what I was hoping for. And so now we can kind of go back to our website and do a quick change. And I'm going to cheat. And so in this case, I want this element. And we want, where is it? There we are, copy, CSS selector, and we'll go into our test, and I'll show you what a test looks like. Well, we already looked earlier. And so we're going to find this CSS selector, and we're going to say that it must contain Angular Nightwatch. Save that. Let's make the screen a little bit bigger for everything, and hopefully this time it'll put it on the right thing. But I'm really looking over there for it. It's so fast that it didn't. So one of the things that you might have noticed is that unlike Selenium, like Selenium will, if it finds an element or it doesn't find an element, the test should take roughly the same amount of time if you set them up the same way. Nightwatch has all the kind of implicit facilities of waiting for elements to be in the right state. This is quite common in like things like WebDriver IO and Puppeteer and Playwright and Cypress. And so when things go correct, it's super quick. And when things go wrong, it doesn't find it. And so we can go and create things there. Brilliant. So I'm just going to go back to my slides just to make sure I'm on the right place. So we've talked about the driver initialization. We've roughly talked about the assertions and kind of making sure everything's set up. We'll have a quick chat about page objects. And And so if I load this, so the common way to do this would be to kind of create a new directory, page objects, and in there we'll go homepage.ts. Sometimes you might see files called tsx, and it's like if they have certain components in them, they'll have a tsx. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but what you can do here is that you can create your is that you can create classes, and one of the nice things is that you can set it all up. You can set up class home page, and so with kind of more modern JavaScript nowadays, you can create everything that you want, just like if you were using Java or Python or .NET or Ruby, like more modern JavaScript. You can like at the moment, the way this code is, there is nothing here that kind of requires it to be TypeScript, because TypeScript where you would have like here you would have an any to say. I always forget. It's probably that. Anyway, so you would have that, and you can kind of go string, and it creates a string interface, or uses the string interface, and you can kind of build things out. And so when you do that, you would kind of make all your changes. Here, I'm just going to copy the relative path, and if I scroll to page there, you would do something like that. And then anytime your test uses a page object here, so you can do anything you want, excuse me, then you don't need to have kind of pure driver code. You can kind of make it more like Cucumber, or if you wanted it kind of just like anything else, you can create your own DSL. That's why page objects exist. So hopefully that starts to make a bit of sense. Right. So I'm just going to okay. So as you saw, kind of Nightwatch comes set up with BrowserStack support straight away. We can see about setting up our API keys, and we can run tests in parallel. And so hopefully you can still see that with the slide in the background. And so if we load up the Nightwatch conf, and we load up, just find something browsers. We can set up user keys. So I've done this enough times that I can go export browsers. Browser, oh no, it's not there. Okay, so we'll do it by hand. It's always the case. So export browser stack user equals, so in my case, David Burns 12. And I can go export browser stack key, and I will need to just do this, and I will load up my browser stack. for those who might write down my API key, straight after the talk, I will be resetting it. So, and you can reset it via command line. So it's very quick. We do this. And we can kind of now, if I load up here, just for like I'm gonna do it for simplicity's sake, because sometimes I get it wrong. So I'm just gonna copy this, and if in here, oh no, wrong file. Here, if I search BrowserStack, oh no, sorry, bstack. Oh, I need to set that to true. Oh, true. So I'm going to use local just because my website's running here. And test. Oh, if I search workers. Oh no. This is where things go horribly wrong. So there's a feature, and I thought it was test worker. I think it's this one. Oh, no. Test worker, and you would set that to true. This allows you to now run your tests in parallel. So in this case, I've only got one test, but it's the same idea. And I want to use the environment. I've used Firefox, and now I want to use, oh, sorry, that's gonna make things horribly wrong. bstack, I think it was IE. So let's have a quick search. bstack.ie. BrowserStack IE. BrowserStack.ie. There is a much shorter command, but I always mistype like it because it's long. I mistype it. That's why I've copied here. Oh. This should work. Hopefully the browser. I'm just going to try one more time. Then if it doesn't work, I will, because we're nearly at time. Okay, but what that would do, and I'm really sorry for the kind of demo guides going horribly wrong, is that it would create a kind of, we would be able to go here and then have a look at our tests. What are we running? And so kind of, so these are some of the tests I've run in the past. So there was working, but you could go ahead and like run anything you want, and you would just pass in your command line changes. And with that, we have reached the Q&A section. So hopefully I've left enough time for people to ask me questions.
Thanks, thanks, David. Great. I think it's a great intro on sort of getting started with Nightwatch, and I think definitely helpful for folks who are using Angular and Protractor together to understand how they can move to Nightwatch. Awesome, cool. So I think before we get into Q&A, I just wanted to sort of announce a poll that we'll be putting up on the screen shortly. Just, if you are interested in somebody getting in touch with you from the BrowserStack sales team about using Nightwatch with BrowserStack, please say yes, and our team will reach out to you as soon as possible. Great. Let's go on to Q&A. So, okay, one question is around, I think a couple of people asked this, does Nightwatch support interaction with shadow DOM elements?
Yes, in the same way that Selenium does. It's a bit like, because I know I've put a lot about this on social media. Shadow DOM is not very good at from a testability point of view. But yes, you can access Shadow DOM just the same way you would with Selenium, which is kind of doing a bit of execute script to kind of navigate the Shadow DOM as and when you find it. As the kind of I personally have been working on improving the Shadow DOM support in browsers for testing. So kind of I wrote some patches for Firefox, and those need to get landed by the Firefox team. But it allows you to kind of use what is in the WebDriver specification that Jim Evans from Salesforce wrote about how to use it. And so that will be with Selenium. And since Nightwatch is built on top of Selenium, or kind of you can use WebDriver IO or anything else, anything that uses Selenium, you can kind of do with Shadow DOM.
Awesome. All right. Okay, I think a couple of questions around like Nightwatch. Why would one use Nightwatch versus any other framework, testing framework out there? Like, maybe from your perspective, what are some of the maybe 2 or 3 things that make it better or different?
With any framework, like each of them are opinionated, and they're opinionated in different ways. I quite like Nightwatch for its simplicity, that it's easy to get running. It's easy to kind of update its configuration, and kind of like with all of these things, like, it all depends on what your interaction is with the community. I know a lot of these communities have really brilliant communities. So I kind of just go for the tool that tries to solve my need at that time. And so I don't try find a tool that will do all my unit testing and all my integration testing and all my end-to-end testing, because normally that leads to a lot of heartache and a lot of pain from a development point of view. So kind of just find the tool that's best for you. And I think Nightwatch is a really nice one. It's really quick. It's got great support from different people. So we can just, that's why I picked it here, is that like sometimes you don't need to use the best and the brightest. Kind of sometimes the underdogs can also be brilliant.
Okay. All right. Let's see what else is there. A couple of people have asked about how Nightwatch compares to Cypress.
So Nightwatch is built like predominantly uses Selenium. Obviously, you can use other things, and so Selenium, like, you get all the benefits of Selenium. But it also has a few heuristics around, like, when you try use an element and it's not found, it will implicitly wait for that element for you. Selenium has never wanted to get into that space, because kind of there are times where it goes horribly wrong. So kind of, I know the Cypress people, the Playwright people, the Puppeteer people, the WebDriver IO people have all created these wait libraries when things go a bit out of normal. Like from that side, like, it has all the same weights, but Cypress has very good debuggability. So if something goes wrong, it's easy to fix. However, Cypress runs everything within the JavaScript sandbox, so you are limited in how you can do things. So you could never test a full login, a full secure login with Cypress. You would need something like Selenium, because like you might need to navigate through domains, and Cypress would never be able to do that because of the same origin policy.
Got it. Okay. Are mocking API calls supported in Nightwatch?
So as I mentioned, like it's using what is available in Selenium. So Selenium now for Selenium 4, which is in beta, and you can start using it now. It has the ability to kind of mock out in Chromium-based browsers, mock out network calls. So like if a certain call comes in, you can handle it. Nightwatch does the same thing because it's built on top of Selenium. So it should be able to do that too.
Got it. Okay, question around some specific Nightwatch commands. So the question is, some of the Nightwatch commands don't seem to be working well with all browsers devices. For example, wait for element visible doesn't work in Safari on iPhone. Any tips or comments around that, or any general sort of incompatibilities that you've seen?
I've not been aware of them, but at the same time, I've not looked too deeply into some of these cases. The one thing I can say is that if you reach out to the folks on the Nightwatch, like I think they've got a discussion board on their GitHub, or they've got a Gitter. Normally, when you reach out to them, they are very quick to try and solve all your problems. And so, like, that's why I kind of like, from a healthy point of view, like the community is really healthy, and so they try to solve these things. But I'm unaware of these types of scenarios. But I know sometimes Safari can be its own pain sometimes, and I love the Apple guys, but like they're, because of their release cycles, sometimes bugs come in and then it takes a very long time for it to be fixed.
Good. Got it. Okay. Let's see. We have time for maybe one or two more questions. Okay, so there's one question around end-to-end tests that are using Nightwatch that are verifying data in an ERP system. And I think the challenge is a lot of API requests going back and forth. So there's a lot of waiting required. And I think this person has tried Playwright, but still have not decided. So I think they're trying to understand, like, Nightwatch versus Playwright. How would you decide, or what are some of the things that you would look at in terms of parameters?
Yeah, so it sounds like this is a really complex web application. And I think in certain circumstances, you need to pick what is right for you. So kind of like, and for your users. So Playwright has a few extra heuristics compared to some of the other like open source projects, but they kind of have a full complement of engineers from Microsoft constantly working on it. So they've been able to solve some of those things. But at the end of the day, I think this is a bit of a like, how do I solve the halting problem? And so how do I know when something is done, or how do I like, and that is a really hard problem in all browser automation. And so like, while Playwright might solve one or two things now, it might not be able to solve some of those slightly more complex things later. And Nightwatch might do the inverse without seeing the application. But yeah, it's I think, kind of, as I said earlier about the community, like if you reached out to the Nightwatch community, I'm sure they would be willing to try help solve this problem for you.
Got it. Awesome. I think there were a couple of questions around using the free tools, Speedlabs, and Responsive. So with Responsive, you just have to sign up. I think when you run the test, it's just you need to sign up. So the sign up itself is free. So you just need to create an account and run it. So you should be good to go. Same with Speedlab. Is, again, these are all free. Speedlab, Responsive, and Screenshots are all free tools. Okay. I think there was one. Let's see. Okay, this question, last question. Is there any example of Nightwatch with Selenium 4? Do we have anything documented anywhere?
There are probably tests in the Nightwatch repository. I also noticed the other day that NASA, for kind of one of its websites for doing image manipulation from satellites, has been using Nightwatch, and I think so. I will try find the link to that. I don't know it off the top of my head, but it's on GitHub, and I think it's it's not the main NASA organization. It's like NASA hyphen something, and then they're using Nightwatch. And I know they're using some of the newer APIs from Selenium 4.
Awesome, that's cool. All right, great. I think that's it, David. We're out of time, but thanks again for a great intro into Nightwatch, getting it up and running, and running it both on your own machine and on BrowserStack. So thanks a lot for that.
Thanks, everyone.